Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the final lecture for CRIM 204. This lecture is entitled Culture and Its Impact on Crime. If you notice on the first slide, what I do is I kind of have like a collage, whatever you want to call that thing. It's like a collage of like all the things that I've said throughout the semester that have an impact on crime, whether that's the informal economy, whether it's poverty having an impact on crime, whether it's drugs having an impact on crime, whether it's broken windows theory, all those things. And what has been kind of left out of the discussion is agency, personal responsibility, and the role of culture. And so I mention in the slides the fact that just a little tidbit that like the United States represents 5% of the world population, and we produce 75% of the world's serial killers. I don't know the numbers on active shooters, but that's also something that like we're good at producing those things too. What is it about our culture that produces so much gun violence, and what is it about our culture that produces so much violence, generally speaking? So as a part of our culture, culture being the way that we dress, the way that we talk, the language that we use, and then most importantly, the values and the norms that we have. In American culture, we are big consumers of violence. It's very interesting when you compare American culture to European culture, for example. I lived in Europe. I lived in England for 2 years. And I noticed that a lot of the commercials there allowed for nudity. There was nudity on all public beaches, public spaces. And this was shocking to me as an American. But the European mentality towards it was like, it's the human body. What's the big deal? Why are you freaking out over this? Stop being such a little child and pervert over this. But their attitudes towards violence is to reduce the amount of violence that is in film. We are the opposite in America. In a news story, we'll show a film of someone's guts hanging out of their stomach. And that's not a big deal for the 6 o'clock news. And yet the second a nipple shows up on TV, people start freaking out and they want to ban that television station. We love violence in this culture. And we're not concerned about its impact. We are seemingly concerned about the impact of nudity on young people. We are very concerned that, like, if you show nudity, that's going to encourage kids to have sex. They're all going to get pregnant and get STDs. Yet we have no concern at all over violence. So listen, I'm not the person that says that violence is caused by video games or violence is caused by movies, but we do, and we are a big part of a culture of violence in this culture. And so, like, I just want to emphasize the role that culture plays. I also mention a little bit, just kind of dispel the notion of it. I mention a little bit about culture poverty theory, which basically wonders, why is it that there's more violent crime in poor neighborhoods, and culture poverty theory says that poor people teach it to each other? I don't believe that theory to be true, but I wanted to show it to you just so you could have some perspective on it. And then I also give the example of like Southern versus Northern culture in the 1800s and how there's this great divide between the dignity of the North and the honor of the South, the code of honor of the South. Just to illustrate that a little bit, if somebody insults you, if somebody says like your mother, all right, pardon my language, somebody says to you that your mother's a whore, right? Dignity, if you live by code of dignity, you would say, those are just words. You're not actually doing anything to me. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. You cannot get to me through your words. I'm more dignified than that. That's dignity. Honor would say, oh, you've insulted my mother. Now I'm obligated to be violent towards you. Now I'm obligated to mess you up, basically. And this is like today, I don't know if there's much of that code of dignity left. We live much more by a code of honor, because if you're standing in a crowd of people, somebody says something insulting about your mother, it would be interesting if the crowd was like, don't let that person get to you. It's just words. Show them how much dignity you have. No. It's more like, oh, did you hear what she said? You're going to let him say that about your mother? Most people rely on that code of honor nowadays. And so I'm illustrating that to show how much violence, the obligation of violence, is built into our culture. People feel obligated to fight with each other just through the use of words. So that's all I wanted to emphasize. So generally speaking, for this assignment or for this lecture, just want to talk about the role of culture in criminal behavior. And then also, I mean, there's also this thing left, the stone left unturned of like individual will. Some people just do these things without any influence at all. They just lose their heads and they engage in criminal behavior. So that is a factor. All right, so otherwise, paper is due this week. There will be an exam next week. Please pay attention to the assignments tab. The lecture will be available there. So I guess that would be Tuesday the 19th. What I'm doing is I'm going to make it available on the 19th, and I'm going to give you guys 48 hours to complete it. So please keep that in mind. And I'll be sending out emails announcing the exact dates and times of the exam. Okay, so otherwise, take care, guys.